Hey everyone, on this episode of Teeter Talks, I chatted with my new friend, Kimberly Evans. We've never met and she lives on the other side of the country, but boy, did we hit it off the first time we connected. She has a podcast called The Joy Curator. She has a company called Joy Consulting, and her middle name is Joy. And really, joy is at the center of everything that she does. She really shares how it's important to find joy even in those darkest and most difficult times. That joy can exist simultaneously with other tougher emotions. She even shares the story of her daughter's journey with cystic fibrosis that they've been going through as a family for the last 13 years, and how even in those moments they found joy and gratitude and perspective in these hard times. We talk a lot about values and that success is living a life in alignment with your values. We talk business, we talk being a mom, we talk about it all. And you're really going to enjoy this conversation. I know it, with Kimberly Evans. So please enjoy. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm well. I am delighted to chat with you today.
It's so funny because I feel like we're friends, like long lost friends, although we've never met. And I love the story of how we came to meet each other because it was a mutual connection that we have. We don't even live in the same province.
Mhm.
And she was just like, I just think you two ladies really need to meet each other. And I'll be honest, I get a good chunk of those types of, I shouldn't say good chunk. I love it so much that people do that. That's what I'm trying to say. I love when people take the time to be like, you two people need to meet each other. I don't know what will come of it, but I just think it would be great. And she was right. We connected, we hit it off. I had the chance to be on your podcast, and I'm so lucky that you're now going to be on Teeter Talks.
Yay! I know. I feel the exact same way. There's times where you're like, okay, you're just not sure what's going to come of a certain connection. But then there's times like this where you're like, wow, I'm not sure how else our paths would have maybe crossed if somebody hadn't taken the time to just send that little email and make the connection. And she is just the biggest cheerleader of women. And
Yes.
so I love that it was her that connected us.
It's so true. And I mean, those connections are what make the world go round. I mean, I try to myself because I love when it happens to me. I'm always conscious of, well, I
Yeah.
need to do this too. I need to, and I do. I mean, just recently I connected to people together that I was like, you two need to know each other. In fact, I feel like you might have known each other in a past life
Yeah.
because you remind me so much of each other. It's scary. So you and I have met. We've gone back and forth. I follow you on social. I get your amazing newsletters. I really do love everything about you. And your middle name is Joy. So you run a company called Joy Consulting. You have a podcast called Joy Curator. And your middle name is Joy. Let's talk about joy for a second, because obviously this is a word that resonates with you.
Mhm.
Why joy, and what does it mean to you?
It's so interesting because having Joy as my middle name was never something, honestly, throughout my whole entire life. Like, I've always been a happy, optimistic type of person. That would be my natural personality, but it was never something that I really even thought of in a sense of, joy as what we know joy to be. It was my name. So I didn't think about it that way. But as I got older and, went through numerous kind of really hard life experiences, it was just a reminder constantly that for me, I came to realize that joy isn't just a feeling. Joy to me is not only just a lifestyle, but you can find joy amidst other feelings. You can be sad and still experience joy. You can be angry and still experience joy. And that, I think, was the big kind of aha moment that I had about joy, which was why my company wasn't always called this, but I really decided that I needed to rebrand and just use that joy in different places, because in the event planning world and in the areas of business that I operate in, it's a big part of it. And I want everybody to sort of be able to capture that feeling.
Do you make a distinction between joy and happiness?
Definitely. So
Mm.
again, the same way of being able to simultaneously, for me, joy is something that I feel like I want my whole life to be exuding joy. Am I happy
Mm.
all of the time? 1,000% not. And I think that is, a common misunderstanding. And I think I've gotten flack for that sometimes from people because they see my social or they'll see whatever. I feel like I'm the same person on social. I'm the same person in a personal setting. I'm the same person in a professional setting. Like what you see is what you get. And I really generally am quite a joyful person. However, I'm a human. So I am going through a variety of emotions every single day, depending on the day and what's going on in life and business and family and all of the things. And so, I think it's hard, but to me, it's like, what are we feeling on the inside? When we are feeling frustrated or triggered or angry about something that has maybe happened, we got a phone call we didn't like, we got an email we didn't like, somebody cut us off while we're driving, whatever the case may be, from a scale of 0 to 100, could be whatever. But to me, it's sort of that, to me, it aligns a little bit more almost with like the gratitude side of things, Joy, where it's like gratitude isn't an emotion that you're feeling. It's a way of being. You can feel grateful, but that sort of whole gratitude lifestyle and that kind of thing, that's how I find joy is as well. And you can find moments of joy everywhere. But if you are in a state where you are not looking for it, it might not always show up where you think it's going to. But if you are intentional about being in that space, every single day, even if you are not feeling 100, you will find little sparks of it.
That's such an important distinction because I think sometimes when we have a bad moment, there's a tendency for some people to stretch it into a bad day, and then it gets stretched into a bad couple of days, and then it gets stretched into a bad week, and then we start talking about, bigger, more lingering, more intense feelings, states of mind, and our mental health start to be at play. Whereas to say that you can have this moment of joy amidst other feelings, so you could be going through some tough stuff, but it doesn't mean you can't be still living in joy or have a joyful life or a joyful existence. It's to be able to acknowledge that we can feel certain things simultaneously. I just love how you say that, because I think sometimes we maybe don't even allow ourselves in those bad moments to find joy. And on the flip side, in joyful moments, to go, I can just have this really quick bad moment, but then I can get back to the joy and I can get back to the, so I kind of love how these feelings can, to your point, coexist. But I too feel like there's a distinction between joy and happiness. Something about joy being this like deeper theme, if you will. It's like the background music of your life as opposed to like what's happening in this moment. Like I tell people all the time, I'm a very joyful person, but you're right. I'm not happy all the time. And I'm not, skipping from one moment to the next all the time. But generally speaking, I'm joyful. And and I think finding joy in those tough moments becomes a great way to maintain both joy and happiness in your life.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I love that.
I think there's a lot of hard things in this world. And I think the more, when you look for hard things, you find hard things. And when you look for joy, you find joy. And so I think it really for me has just been more of a state of mind than anything. And I think what I've noticed as I've gotten older is it's more of the, how do we recover from those hard things? Like, what's the recovery on it? It's not that I think I went through a period of time in my younger years thinking there was some sort of fictitious finish line where all of a sudden everything was just going to be well with the world. Everything was going to be figured out. All of a sudden there wasn't going to be a to-do list. All of a sudden there was just going to be, you're just going to get to this magical, happy place where you're going to have it all figured out. I really think I believed that when I was younger. And it's taken me a long time to realize that, there's like this slogan, even just like joy in the journey, like there's just this, like, it's not about this end goal of anything. It's about being good with things and joyful with things and content with things as they are unfolding, even if it is not unfolding the way our brains are telling us we thought it should unfold. It's unfolding exactly as it should.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my mind goes in a million directions as you say that. My first thought is, when you talk about the joy in the journey, I'm constantly reminding people that think about the greatest road trips, right? It's sometimes the most fun happens in the car on the way to the place that you're going, right? Like it's all the exciting things and it's all the fun pit stops and the detours and the wrong turns. And then eventually you get to where you're going, but sometimes you just find so much joy in that journey, in that car ride too. You eventually get to that destination. Sometimes you change destinations. Sometimes the destination wasn't even as fun as the ride there, and you try to make the best of it. I also think, to your point, it's this idea of continuously. Sometimes people think if I'm happy or joyful, there's this idea of like, well, I'm happy, I'm settling in my happiness, right? Or, you talked about the journey and moving forward. There's this expression that I love, and I'm stealing it from the great Ed Milet, but it's called blissful dissatisfaction. And it's
Mm,
like being happy, but not being satisfied, like finding joy, but that doesn't mean you're kind of and I'm, speaking to all the high performers out there listening,
yeah.
being happy and joyful doesn't mean you're settling or you're kicking up your feet and you're relaxing or settling into this moment. There is something about pursuing joy and happiness and feeling blissful where you are, but still wanting more, not
Yeah.
satisfied. So, it's this idea of, find joy, find bliss. But you don't have to be satisfied. You can keep, for those perfectionists, for those people that are on the journey, moving towards maybe a destination they haven't even determined yet. They don't even know where they're going, but this idea is like, I'm just going to keep moving forward. Find joy in the journey, be blissful, but you don't have to be satisfied. Yeah. So I love those two elements that you brought up. I think they're so important.
Mhm.
You also, you've been very vocal about your journey, and now we know why. You've put joy at the center of a lot that you do. It's like it's who you are, but it's also something you want to live up to every day, which I think is great. You've had your hard times. You have two daughters. And your daughter, Cassidy, was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at a very young age. She was 4, I think.
Mhm. That's
And I
right.
think I say this all the time. I'm like, as long as my kids are happy and healthy, I can handle everything. And then I
Mhm.
run into mamas and dads who have children who are sick or dealing with something. And I just think, I mean, even we have it on a smaller scale when our own kids are sick at home or something. It's just like, oh,
Yes.
this is the hardest thing, right? Dealing with your child who's
Mhm.
sick. You're like, I want to take this on. First of all, can you share with us a little bit about cystic fibrosis? Talk a little bit about Cassie and just how you found joy, if you will, in that journey of her diagnosis.
Yeah, it's interesting because you wouldn't have been able to tell me that this is how I would be sharing this story. Um,
Mm,
12 years ago when she was diagnosed, I couldn't have imagined that in that moment I would ever at any point in my life be saying, you know what, I found joy in this experience. That
fair.
felt impossible in the moment. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic disease, so you are born with it. You cannot catch it.
Mm,
But we did not know that she had it until she was 4.
mm,
Um, it is a genetic condition that affects a lot of things, but primarily your uh, respiratory system and your digestive system. So, really, how it is often described is you're drowning from the inside out. Your body is not able to process and balance salt and water properly the way ours would just naturally. And so, because of that, it makes all of the mucus that everybody has in their bodies really thick and sticky for somebody with
mm,
CF. So it just plugs up your organs, it plugs up your lungs, it plugs up your pancreas, and you have to do a lot of respiratory physiotherapy in order to help clear yourself and take medication and that kind of thing in order to keep it at bay in your body. So it's scary. It's a fatal
yeah.
disease. It was not, when you're pregnant, you're hoping that your child comes out healthy and there's a million and one things that could potentially go wrong. And then once you have these little babies, you're just doing everything in your power to keep them safe and healthy. And that is just like your role. And we would just do anything for these kids. And so the fact that that diagnosis happened was life shattering. It was just not something in a million years that I was anticipating would be my
Mm,
story as a mom. I had a 1-year old also when Cassidy was 4, Lucia was 1. I was in the throes of a big event planning company that I owned with other business partners. I was working 80 hours a week. I was, you're just at survival mode at the best of times,
Yeah.
especially when the kids are that little. And then to have a life-threatening illness, just it's like one of these out of body experiences. Like I can remember the room I was in. I can remember what was on the walls. I can remember where everybody was standing. I would be able to draw a complete illustration as to like what that moment was, because it was literally like the world stopped. Like it was just like nothing I had ever experienced in my entire life. And went from thinking like, okay, like maybe there's like something minor wrong, to being told that this was what the outcome was of the tests that had been getting done was just not something that I had ever, you can't prepare yourself for this type of thing. So in that moment, I, had to make a lot of really difficult decisions in the months after that, because within the day of her being diagnosed, she suddenly had 3 hours a day of medical treatments to do. She had medications to take, and she's 4, and to get a 4-year-old to take 30 pills a day, like, like it's hard enough to just,
Yeah.
get them to sit still, to, I don't know, give them a bath at that age,
Yeah.
which is
Fair.
like,
Fair.
not, let alone to do something that A, is brand new for all of us, and B, no child should need to go through those types of, experiences like that. So it was just a lot. And so I really had to dive deep, and there were, it was a long period of time of survival. I ended up getting out of the business that I owned, because I had to just take care of what I needed to take care of. And it was really difficult. It was never the decision that I wanted to make.
Right.
But I had to reevaluate my whole entire life. And I think a lot of people may be able to kind of relate to this a little bit in a totally different sense by even just thinking of some of the decisions people had to make during the pandemic.
Right.
There's times in life, and I think when we are in this corporate professional culture, and I think as women, we are always working extra hard to try to keep up. Because unfortunately, we often are still primarily the ones responsible for our households, and feeling the weight of the emotional labor of raising children is just heavier on women for the most part. And it's just a lot to manage. So I really had to make some difficult decisions in regards to business, in regards to what our life looked like. When you cut an entire income out of your household, like all the things, you just have to make a lot of really difficult decisions. And so that really led me down a road of self-discovery, being a lot more mindful of just what life is all about. And it wasn't that I wasn't aware of that before then, but I just don't think until you have been in certain circumstances, like you can see it happening to other people, you can see it happening to close people, but until it hits you,
Yeah.
specifically with children, feels like such a different situation than anything,
Yeah.
it's just something that I could not have predicted how to walk through this. And you're just learning as you go along, like anything. There is no roadmap to having a child diagnosed with something. You are just taking minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. And all of a sudden, we're almost 13 years later. And, I just look back and just can't believe all of the things that have come out of this that have brought so much joy to her life, to our life, to my business, to myself personally, and all of the wild experiences that have come from the fact that something so catastrophic struck. And I never thought we were going to sort of feel that joy again, because it felt so hard in that moment.
Well, thank you for sharing that story. I couldn't imagine, to be honest. And to your point, I know people who have gone through some, life-altering situations with their children, with family members, certainly a lot with women as caregivers, whatever role, be it with friends, family, parents, children. And it's funny because I'm so amazed by people like yourself who are able to take that trauma and turn it into something joyful. Now, I realize this probably doesn't happen that day that you get the news or even within a short time frame afterwards, but there's just something beautiful about saying, this is happening for a reason. This is happening to us. We can handle this. And then to your point, taking the perspective of, okay, could it be worse? What are we fortunate for? What can we be grateful for? What really matters? What doesn't? And you brought up COVID, and I say that all the time. I mean, for those of us who were fortunate enough during COVID to weather the pandemic, right? Continue to work, not have to be on the front lines. I mean, there are a lot of people where COVID was much more difficult, but I say all the time, I mean, what a wonderful opportunity to focus on what matters in life and focus on, in the bad times, what do you really care about? Who do you really turn to? Who's turning to you? Who's there for you? And so sometimes these bad times give us these moments of perspective. And going back to the conversation of joy earlier, it's amazing that during, which I'm sure was a very stressful time, I'm sure you had very dark times and sad times, that I'm guessing that you and your daughter, and your family found moments of joy to make it through those days, right? To say, this is really crummy. We can't change it, but we can still find joy to get through. And I suspect, I want to speak for your daughter, but I suspect there was a lot of learnings for her in terms of how to tackle life from here on out.
I sure hope so. And I see her resilience, and I see how she's almost 17 now. I see how she handles life and how she takes things on, and how, she manages herself, and how self-aware she is as a 16-year-old, which again, like, teenage years are hard, and there's a lot of stuff going on, and we all remember being teenagers, and, having an added illness and stuff on top of it all, is just another layer of things to kind of process. And I'm just so proud of the way that she shows up and handles life. And I think that was always my mission. If I could give her the best life ever, no matter what the end result was going to be. And none of us know what tomorrow holds. But when you're being given a life expectancy for your child, that brought that to light in a whole nother way than just thinking, oh, none of us know what tomorrow looks like. It was just different. And I sat with that for years of just, trying to really work through the idea that I very well might outlive my child. And that was not settling or okay for me. And I realized that all of the things that I had been doing in my life, specifically in my business leading up to it, really were skill sets that were preparing me for this day. And there were so many things now in the last 12 years that we've been able to do for cystic fibrosis because of the advocacy work that we've been on the front lines of, and the events that we've thrown, and the things we've been a part of, and what we've been able to build for the cystic fibrosis community across Canada, because of, diving into a really difficult situation and just deciding, like, this is not going to be the end of us. We are going to use this and use our story in order to, make life better for not only the CF community, but for the people that are hearing our story, who are maybe having a difficult day, no matter what their circumstances are, and being able just to take that and go with it. And I don't know why. I get asked this question all the time. Why do you think you had the capacity to kind of look at it in that direction versus wanting to just curl up in fetal position and do nothing? That's probably the main question I get asked all of the time. And I'm like, I don't know why some people, it's to no judgment of anybody. I don't know why some people are wired in a certain way, why certain things they are able to sort of overcome and get past. And it is not to say, like, I have many, many hard days. There are times where it just sinks in to the, like, vastness of what cystic fibrosis is and all of the, potential things that could happen. But I find if I can just be doing the work for myself on making myself feel like I am at my best, what do I need to be at my best in order for my mental health, in order for my physical health, in order for my emotional health to feel like I am at that place so that I can stay present moment. Because being in the event planning industry, we're never present moment. We are always 1 year, 2 years, 5 years down the road planning events and doing things. Events don't happen overnight. It's a work in progress when you're working on projects. And so I have found my personal life to suffer being present moment because of the job hazard of being in the event industry. So it's hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great perspective. And as you're talking, it's funny because people say, how do you do it? And I do think you're an exception, certainly, but I think it's amazing what happens in those moments if those people had to show up that way too. Like, I just think there's probably something
Yes.
in us that we underestimate ourselves, right? And it's
Yes.
such a funny conversation to have with people. Like, I don't think I could ever do that. I'm like, no, you probably could, but you won't find it in yourself until you have to. And that's why I often
Yes.
tell people, like, don't not do something because you're scared. It's just because it's unfamiliar, not because you're not capable. And so you
Yeah.
have to kind of sometimes move towards the fear and know that that feeling in your stomach is just the unknown, not this idea of you couldn't handle it, because I think sometimes we're capable of so much more. Although I do think there's like that extra group of special people that just kind of look at life and go, well, what am I going to do? I can't, like, you can't cure cystic fibrosis. You can't, what are we going to do about this? We can't fix it. And so not dwelling in it and moving forward. Now, I'm sure you had moments where you were curled up in the fetal position, as we all do. And I think that's to be expected. But the key is you didn't stay there for the last 13 years, and your daughter didn't see you stay there. And I think a lot of that, will be passed on to her, which is amazing. I do have a question though, because I know one of the interesting things, and it may not be someone dealing with a child with an illness, it could be dealing with something else, parents, or how do you support people going through something? So when you were going through that, what did the best type of support look like for you? Like, was it really a homemade lasagna that was delivered to your front porch? Is that what it takes? A good casserole? But, honestly, like, what, as people who I know want to support their neighbors and be there for their friends and don't always know what to say or do, what advice do you have for people who are going through something and want to bring some joy to somebody else? What can they do?
That is a great question. My front row of closest people, or people that I had conversations about this, because they're the ones that you can have like the real conversations with.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one of my really good friends said to me once, shortly after Cassidy was diagnosed, she was saying something to me about something about her kid. We were just having a conversation about, shooting the breeze. It was just about anything. And she said something about this, and she looked at me and she was like, I shouldn't have said that. That's like so not a big deal in relation to what you're going through. And I looked at her and I said, my problems and my current life situation does not negate anybody else's level of hard. Yes, there are levels of hard, sure, this thing over here, but everybody, and I think if we learned anything during the pandemic, everybody has their own version of what's hard, and sometimes it sounds silly when you're seeing somebody else complaining about something that just seems so basic, like, really, like this is, but if we actually can just take a step back and be like, that might be the hardest thing for them. That,
yeah,
good for them that they have not had to deal with something harder. That's their hardest thing. And so I think if we can just have an empathetic response to that, but yeah, I mean, I think for myself, because I'm very much a doer and a go-getter and a fixer, and I'm the one that was used to helping others. I'm the one that would like literally walk through fire for my people. I struggled to receive. And so that unto itself was a huge thing that I did not realize I needed to learn in life, because struggling to receive is a whole deeper issue of other things. Now I know.
That's another podcast for another day.
That's a whole other episode.
Yeah.
So it was the receiving. And I think what I realized for myself, the people that know me really well know that I make so many decisions in a day, not only just for the career that I'm in. Each event contract that I am working on has 1.2 million decisions that need to be made on it in any given day. As a mom, as a friend, as a whatever, you are just always making decisions about stuff that by the end of the day, you're like, I can't do one more thing. Like, I just don't ask me anything. Like, just put whatever in front of me and I'll eat it. Don't care what it is. I don't even want to order off a menu because I cannot make one more decision. So my friends knew that to show up for me, they needed to just show up. There was no, would this be helpful? Would that be helpful? Can I bring this over to you? It was more so just the lasagna was on the front step. No questions asked. Don't care if you want it or not.
Well, I think that's the greatest advice. Like, that's what I was going to say in these moments. Sometimes you just have to show up, right? Don't worry. Don't overthink it. Just show up. And to your point earlier, even if you don't know what to say, because you see it happen sometimes when people go through deaths or bad experiences, people like don't reach out to people because like, well, I don't know what to say, or they don't go to like a visitation or a funeral because they're uncomfortable. They don't know what to say. I'm like, you just have to show up. Even if the wrong thing comes flying out of your mouth, you just have to show up. And, I remember someone saying recently, well, I was going to bring my neighbor something, but maybe they're gluten-free. I'm like, just put some cookies on their doorstep. Like, if they're gluten-free, then they will know not to eat them. It's the thought, but there's something magical about just showing up for people. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like, it's just alleviating the load of even asking me what I want. I don't know what I want. I couldn't even make a list. There's too many things happening. So just, I'd always tell people all the time, I'm like, don't ask, just do it. Just tell me what to do. Like, just tell me what to do. I will be there. Yeah. It's so true. I love that. And it's funny because it aligns very much with, I said, I love your content. I love following you on social. You have such a strong undertone of just wonderful value-oriented work. And, you share a lot of great messages and, values seem to be a very important theme for you. I mean, we've talked a little bit in a roundabout way without using the word, but what role do values for you play in your work at home, in what you do? Why does it seem so important in terms of how you put yourself out there?
Yeah, like I touched on earlier, I have always wanted to be the same person, whether you meet me on social media or whether you meet me in real life, personally, professionally. And I think the only way that we can do that is if we feel really confident and clear on what our own personal values are. And our personal values are the things that we are bringing into our businesses or workplaces or friendship circles or community organizations. Like, we as people are the thing, like, if we are not clear about what is important to us, that is what makes other people not necessarily feel safe around you, because you're wishy-washy about, what you believe in. And I don't mean so stark that you have to have such stark beliefs in certain things. Like, I'm not really talking about our beliefs even. It's just sort of like your core values. Like, what is important to you? What brings joy to your life? And often what I've noticed is I'm a time manager as an event planner. I am constantly managing time. So even in my personal life, I'm always thinking backwards. I can for the most part, if someone's like, hey, what time do you think it is right now? And I haven't looked at the clock in the right time, I can like almost be bang on every time.
Yeah,
a little special skill. Of just like, I am always managing time because I need to be efficient and I need to have things done in a certain time frame for the type of work that I do. But I think our values and our time are often the things that are misaligned. That's where I think people get into trouble. It's not, you might think you know what your values are, but if that is not where you are also then spending your time, it's a misalignment. That's why people feel discontent. That's why, they want to change careers or businesses or, not be a friend with this person anymore or whatever the case may be. That's where that discontentment comes from. It's not because of external things happening. It's because of your own internal struggle on, I mean, use this as an example. A lot of us as business owners are always trying to it's a fine line dance between working too much, not working enough to keep up with the business, spending enough time with the kids, not having the kids like so much involved that you can't have time to get your work done. Like, it's just always a thing, right? And I don't ever use the word balance. I don't think that's a word that exists.
It doesn't exist. exist.
It
Yeah.
doesn't exist. That word is not in my vocabulary. And that's not what I'm striving for. I'm striving for alignment. I want to feel aligned in what I am doing. There are
Yep.
weeks where I spend tons of time. Okay, my kids are teenagers now. They really don't want me around all that much. So it's a different story than when they're littles. But, to anybody on here who's juggling whatever the case may be, not even necessarily kids, but just all the hats that you wear in life, wherever you're choosing to spend your time, it needs to be aligned with what you really believe is important. So if spending time with your family, your kids, is something that you are saying is one of your top 5 values, top 3 values, but you haven't done anything with them for the last 3 weeks, yes, you love them, but I would not say that's one of your top values, because
Right.
where we value is where we spend our time. And there's nothing wrong with anybody's values. It's not about whatever they are. You pick whatever they are for yourself. But if you are not spending your time proportionately to what you say your values are, and your time is going towards those top 3 to 5 values, you will always feel misaligned. And that's where that discontentment comes in. So I think to know yourself better and to really understand and evaluate your schedule and your calendar versus what you're saying your values are, it's kind of a very left brain, right brain kind of type exercise, but that's where people find more joy and more contentment in their lives, because they're actually being honest with themselves about what their values are, not what they think they should be or what they wish they are, or I feel guilty for working too much, but work isn't my top value, but I work 90 hours a week. Well,
Right.
that's not adding up. And it's fine for work to be one of your values. Absolutely. Whatever it is what it is. You just have to be honest with yourself.
Yeah. And I think people need to figure out what their values are. Like, I've had this conversation a couple of times with a good friend of mine, and it's funny because I don't know if I've ever spoke openly about, because we're not talking politics or religion, or, I mean, your religion could be a value, sure, or,
Right.
they could factor into, but to your point, it's like, what really matters to you? And then 100% you'd hit the nail on your head. How much of your life and your time are you dedicated to these things? I always tell people, color code your calendar and see what color you spend the most. Like, what colors pops up the most? What is that? And most people say it's work. I have to work. I don't have a choice. But then I would argue, like, you fine, but I would still like your work to align with one of your values in life. I mean, you're spending a third
Yes.
of your life doing it. I would question if it doesn't align with something that matters to you, then maybe you're in the wrong profession or the wrong job. I would also
Yeah.
say that life ebbs and flows. So maybe sometimes you got to put in more work doing something you don't like to get to the next phase. Sure. But you're 100% right. Are you spending your time where it matters to you most? And if not, where is that time being spent? And why are you spending it somewhere else? And can you reallocate that time? And color coding your calendar is a great way to do it, because then it's right in front of you and you can figure out, how you spend it. I mean, you've mentioned your business a few times, and there's a quote that you put out there that said, you should plan your life and business like an event. What do you mean by that?
I feel like our one beautiful life, is our greatest event. Really, everything we're doing all day long, it's an event. You're planning things, you're meeting new people, you're doing similar things. Your life is your event. And I think so often, like you even just said, work is like the most popular color on the calendar. And there's all of these little things where, oh, I wish I could go do that. Or you see somebody on social media having just come back from a vacation, or having just like bought a new something or a whatever. And you're like, oh, that would be nice to do. Or that looks like a fun hobby to try, or whatever. And there's just this like interesting mindset, I think sometimes, that people have, where you get so stuck in this rut of discontentment and adulting and what we think life is supposed to be like, that you forget that every single decision that we make is our choice.
100%.
We actually get to choose where we are spending our time. And I get there are realities to situations where we are not
Yeah.
going to love every single minute of every single day and everything that we're doing. Even if you love your work and love your career, obviously we all have things that we have to do that aren't necessarily always the top things that you want to do. So I'm not talking about every minute of every day being, wonderful and you'll never have another thing, but I really rarely feel like I'm working. I love
Mm.
what I do. There are a lot of really hard days in what I do also where it's hard, but I'm not bitter and resentful and like, oh, why am I doing this? Like, for
Yeah.
the most part. And so
Yeah.
I think I always feel like the things that you want to do or the things that are little sparks of joy, sometimes you just need to get to a space of, and I think from the event planning world, I'm always dreaming up new ideas. Like no matter where I am or what I'm doing, I always have the lens of, oh, I could do that for an event. That would be really cool. If wherever I
Mm.
am, I just see it. I see the world that way. But I think to put those sparks of joy in your calendar, if that's what you need to do. That's what I do when I'm trying to like reset myself with either a new habit or a new something that I keep saying I want to do, but I'm just not doing it, where I'll go grab coffee from a new coffee shop, one I've never tried before. That's maybe a little out of the way.
Right.
Just to take a new route to drive there is reformatting your brain to be thinking somewhere else. It's why when we're on a vacation or in a different city or wherever, that everything feels kind of different because your brain has to like rethink what it's doing because it's not just following the familiar path and driving the same route and going to the same place and making dinner at the same time. And that's why you feel refreshed coming back from somewhere often because you've just had this chance to reset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as we get older, I hate to say it, that's very good for your brain. All the research for dementia and Alzheimer's show like trick your brain as much as you can, take new routes home, do things with your left hand if you're right-handed, put yourself in these situations to get out of the mundane or the usual or the habitual or whatever that looks like for you. Yeah, I say it all the time. You're exactly where you chose to be. And there's always exceptions to that rule, especially when people are dealing with illness or terrible circumstances. But generally speaking, you are where you chose to be. You continue to stay where you are because you choose to be there. And it is 100% possible to make big changes even when you're grown up. It's possible to chase dreams. It's possible to stop, restart, pivot. Take it from someone who started a brand new career, in her 40s. It seems crazy, and yes, there are bills to pay, and there are responsibilities, and risk might seem insane, but you've got one life, like you said. And if you look at your life like a party, which I love that, you want to throw the best party possible. It's your party, so enjoy it, right? Be in it.
Yes.
Pull out all the bells and whistles. I think that's amazing. This is a leadership podcast, and it's not hard hitting because it's not what we talk about the entire time. But everybody I have on, including yourself, is someone I think who's just leading and doing amazing things in a really amazing, unique way. I really want to understand from you. Do you see yourself as a leader? And what is the best piece of leadership advice you've received?
I do feel like a leader, and I think I have felt like a leader since I was really young. That has
Mm.
always been like young as in child. Like that has just been something that has naturally and it's been a blessing and a curse. It's definitely caused a lot of over functioning in
Mm.
my life in places that I could have probably just functioned rather than over functioned. However, it has definitely allowed me to be the business owner that I want to be. It's allowed me to be the
Mm.
mother that I want to be, the friend that I want to be, because I don't. No, I don't. There's nobody's problem for anything except my own. Nobody
Mm.
is causing any discomfort in my life except for things that I decide are discomfort in my life. And so I really just want to be the person where whether it's my clients or my friends, business colleagues, my children, especially, where they just see that I love my life, that I am going to show up for them, that I am going to help them rise, that they know that I am in their corner, and that I would, connect the dots and go out of my way to try to make sure that, if there is a way that I can support someone in business, if there is a way that I can support someone personally, I will do that. And that you feel, without that being the intention, you just automatically feel so reciprocated in that regard. And that to me is what a leader should be. I am more so, I think, sometimes to my own demise, looking out for other people's businesses versus my own. Because I just want to be the person that is like really elevating others, specifically women in business, have been, just on my heart as a woman in business to just, let's just help each other rise. There is room for all of us. And that's what I think a great leader creates.
I think that's amazing. I agree. I mean, I'm very much a leader through service. Like I would much rather tee everybody up to shine and just kind of enjoy front row seats to their show and their success. I can 100% relate to that. But you said something that was really important about, you want to see, and I'm paraphrasing now, but you want them to see you happy and fulfilled and living your best life. And I think that's important, especially as moms and dads too. I have a good friend of mine right now who's going on like her first trip away from her kids since having her third child. And, we've all done it. There was a first trip for all of us where we were away from our children.
Yeah.
And, there's all the guilt and all the things. And I just said to her, I said, just a reminder, more than anything, your kids want a happy mama. They want a fulfilled mom. They want someone who's so happy with their life and comfortable in their skin, and just, you got to show your kids that you can live your best life, that it's possible for them too. And I do think there's something about leadership in whatever capacity that you need to show that you're having fun out there doing the things as you're out there inspiring people, because that's what people really want to see, right? That in the end, it's all worth it, that, that the journey is enjoyable too, not just the end destination. So I love that advice. As per usual, this time flies by and you and I could probably talk for hours. So I want to get to some rapid fire questions because I do have a lot of them for you. So we'll keep them short and sweet, but I'm curious about, as a party planner or event planner, what is the absolute no-no for throwing a good party? Because then I'm going to ask you the opposite. What is an absolute must for throwing a good party?
Oh, absolute no-no. So I think this is going to sound counterintuitive. I think not having enough, like boundaries and limitations to what's going on at the event. You need to have that to a certain degree in order for people to feel comfortable and safe.
Okay.
And I use the word safe lightly, just feeling taken care of at it. So yeah, I think sometimes having not enough structure can be a little bit of a no-no, but it can also very easily go the other way where there's too much, and then that's a no-no also. So kind of finding that sweet spot. Yeah.
Got it. When you're not busy doing all these things that you do you have a hobby you like to do in your spare time?
Yes, hobbies are very important to me, and I didn't realize that they should be important to me until the last decade of my life. I was very absorbed with children and all of the things, and wish that I had probably paid more attention to all of that stuff sooner, because those little eyes are watching, and it is what we show them, not what we say. So one of my hobbies, which is a summer hobby, I got into paddleboarding. So I'm a paddleboarder now, and I love it. It is so calming, and it's like an activity thing to do, and like it's just fun to be out on the water. And I don't love going into the water, so it's the perfect activity for me because I can be out of the water but on the water.
That actually sounds perfect to me too. I love being around water. I just don't want to be in it.
Yes.
The key is to being a good paddleboarder so you don't end up in the water. So you must be pretty good.
Well, we'll see. You haven't fallen in yet.
Okay. I don't want to jinx it, so I suspect you will continue to be very good. You've built a couple of businesses. What, in your opinion, does it take to build a strong business?
Consistency.
Hmm.
I think we've talked about this a few times, just showing up. just continuing to show up. And I have definitely not always been great at this. It's something that I continue to work on. I think with things that happen in life, it's easy to, you have babies, you're rebuilding. My daughter got sick. I was rebuilding. The pandemic, you're rebuilding. There's just always a lot of things that are causing, there's never like a straight line on it. And I think recognizing that it won't ever be a straight line, anticipating that it won't be a straight line, has allowed me to just lean in to staying consistent to the best that I can and just being really gentle on myself. Nobody cares about your business more than you. So if you think people are looking around and like judging and wondering what you're doing, like just stay in your own lane and just be consistent for what you want to be. And it's gonna, where you put your energy is where it's going to fall into place.
It's such great advice for business and life. We are our harshest critics and we assume everybody's watching and judging and just waiting for that misstep. And it's shocking how much people don't care about us or our business. people have their own problems. And I tell people all the time, trust me, no one's going to notice if, this thing you promised goes out a week late, or if you skip a newsletter 1 month, it's just the reality of the pressure we put on ourselves. To that point, I'm fascinated with the topic of success. And given the life that you have lived, I'm curious for you what success means to you and has it changed over time?
It has definitely changed. I've been in business for just over 20 years. And it was a very different world. Being in my early 20s when I started and, often being the youngest person in a corporate room and just trying to navigate being a woman in business and like all of the things that come about it. My brain used to lead to success equaling revenue. I thought that was literally what the definition of success was. I didn't realize that that's what it was. And to me, my version of success now means that I am living my life in alignment with my values. So does that not mean revenue? No, obviously, if you are in a business, you need to be making money or else it's a hobby. So that's one of the things, obviously, that needs to happen if you're owning a business. But, freedom for me is very important. The fact that I can work from anywhere and, let my time be my time and, kind of run my schedule how I want to run my schedule for the most part. That to me is success. That's what I wanted to own a business for. So if you're running a business and you wanted to run a business because you wanted the freedom and flexibility that came with, but you're working 90 hours a week and you never see anybody else and you're never doing anything, is that successful? Right. For some people, yes, that's fine for them. But, you have to just align. So to me, success equals alignment.
I couldn't agree more. And those things can change, right? I think values do evolve over time as you go through different phases of life, and they might shift or they may take on different proportions. You may have one value that's just so much more important than the others. But it's living in alignment where it just makes sense, right? We kind of talked about this earlier where you need to live your life in a way where it makes sense and it feels right. And if something just doesn't feel off, you have choices. They may not be choices you like, and they may be really tough choices, but there's always a choice. Kimberly, I could speak with you for hours, but I want you to let people know where they can find you. You have the Joy Curator Podcast. Where else can people keep tabs on you?
Yeah, so on Instagram, you can find my company at Joy Consulting. And I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Kimberly Evans. Yeah, I would love to connect. I always love meeting new people. So send a DM or comment on a post, and would love to just see where the stars align, just the way they did with you and I.
Exactly. It's amazing what happens when people just reach out and you start these little conversations and they lead to great things. Well, listen, I'm so thankful that you shared your story today. I hope people out there listening, women, men, anybody can take away the importance of living in alignment with your values, living your life as if it's a party, planning your business as if it's a party or a great event. I just love those concepts. So thank you for bringing those and for sharing, and really lovely conversation today. And I'm super grateful and look forward to crossing paths again soon.
Thank you. It was a joy to be here.
Likewise. Talk to you soon.